And I was really stuck there for quite a while. Like that was how I viewed the world and like God, of like things are good and things are bad, and you got to be doing the good to get what you want. And if you're the bad, then you deserve what's coming to you, basically.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Church Hurt Podcast. I'm your host, Darryl Williams, and thank you for tuning in. And today we have a very special guest, Samantha, here to share her story of church hurt and how she left and came back and, reinvigorated her relationship with Jesus. So, Samantha, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you feeling?
I'm a little nervous, but I'm excited. I'm happy to share my story, and hopefully it'll resonate with a lot of people. So thank you for having me.
Don't be nervous. Like we talked before, broke the ice a little bit. Now we're live, but it's going to be great. How's your day going? Work is busy today, or you just kind of have a chill day?
I actually don't work Friday, so it's my errand day. So I've just been running around doing all that stuff.
Okay, nice. So you work like Monday through Friday,
Thursday.
Monday to Thursday, 4-day work week. That's nice. That's nice. I work 6 days a week. So I do real estate in New York. So like Sunday through Friday, and like I'm running around. So like in between this pod, because I did one earlier this morning, I left to do real estate stuff, calls, emails, and it came back here to the studio to do this podcast. But
oh my god,
it's Friday and Sabbath is in a few hours, and I can just turn everything off and relax.
Yes,
but
definitely.
It's a good day to record on a Friday, so I'm excited about this. So before we like dive into your story, I always like to go back to the beginning. So kind of walk us through like who you are, like what your upbringing was like, and like take us to the genesis of Samantha.
Okay. So I was basically born and raised in the Adventist church, like 6th generation Adventist on my dad's side. So they've been there a while. I did the whole like baby dedication, like go to church every Saturday, had the Sabbath from like Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. Like it was just like a regular part of my life, basically like from birth. So I think at that time it was just like I was very focused on being the good girl. So I didn't really have like that relationship with God. It was just like, here's stories that we hear every week, and like, you need to do this and don't do this. And, then everything will be great. And I think it really gave me a lot of anxiety, like, especially when I was younger, like wanting to make sure I was basically like perfect or seen as the good girl. And that stuck with me for like quite a while. Like I was really stuck in like that, I don't know, just viewing God as like this judgmental person who's always looking at what you're doing. And there's this thing called like Kohlberg stages of like moral development, which like kind of shows us how we create our moral compasses. And stages 1 through 4 is basically like focused on like good and bad, like trying to get rewards and not punishments. And I was really stuck there for quite a while. Like that was how I viewed the world and like God, of like things are good and things are bad, and you got to be doing the good to get what you want. And if you're the bad, then you deserve what's coming to you, basically.
Wow. That's very black and white worldview to have. So was on your mother's side, was she also Adventist, or she converted when she met your father?
She was Adventist. My grandparents, her parents, began going to the Adventist church when she was a little girl. So she was then 2nd generation. So not as far back as like my dad's, but they are both Adventists.
Okay. So growing up in an Adventist home, like as a child, to your earliest memory, like what was your view of church, and what was your view of God, and like what were your thoughts and feelings around it as growing up in that household?
I think it was, I remember I liked going to church. Like I had a lot of friends there. We were really involved in a lot of like the Sabbath school stuff, like adventures, Pathfinders, all that kind of stuff. So it was a place I liked to go to because of that. My relationship with God, I think, like I said, was just like, all right, this is someone who's like judging us. She's supposed to be good, but like he's telling us what's good and what's bad, and we just kind of have to follow that. Like I would definitely probably had,
like even from like your earliest childhood memory, that was the view. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that was really how I saw it. Like there wasn't a whole lot of like love that I felt like taught with that. Like I'm sure everybody had good intentions. I don't think they meant to. But that's just like my takeaway from when I was younger, was like there wasn't a lot of like, here's why we do this. This is like God wants you to do this, and he doesn't want you to do this, and that's how you got to live your life.
Okay. So when you were, I guess, that's probably more like middle school, high school, how was the because I'm hearing you, you're like, the rules, the good or the bad. I guess my question is, how was the gospel presented to you as a child? Did you think you heard it, or was it just like, here's the program, follow it until Jesus comes back?
Yeah, I definitely don't feel like I took in really what the gospel was. Of course, like I heard it, but people would get like emotional about it, and I was like, well, this is like I don't get it. Like it's just a story that we've heard. I mean, not like I didn't believe it, I did, but
Yeah.
it wasn't like real to me. It was just something that I think growing up in the church is just like stories that you're told, and you're just like you almost take it for granted that like, all right, this happened, we know it, like moving on, instead of really personalizing what that meant for me.
Yeah, an over familiarity with the
Yeah.
stories and the narratives sometimes can lose its power. I think we all go through that. Even I'm like, I need to go back and read like the story of the crucifixion.
Hmm.
Like I read it for the first time and really tap into like what was happening and how I
Yes.
should feel towards that. But yeah, I think that familiarity can
Yes. Yeah.
sometimes negate the power of the stories, especially if you're coming from a sixth generation and a second generation and you were raised in it. Like it's like, oh, this is what it is. This is normal.
Hmm.
Did you have a life outside of that Adventist bubble, or was it like Adventist school from elementary,
Mm.
high school, college, and friends?
That's a very good question. I actually went to a public school through eighth grade,
Oh,
so
okay.
that I kind of felt almost conflicted with that because a lot of my friends at my church went to the local Adventist school, so I felt kind of left out in that regards. Like I wasn't always didn't always get to do what they were doing, and then at public school, like I didn't get to do the Friday night dances or the football games, so I wasn't like quite totally feeling like I fit in there either. So I think I was
Mm,
also searching for that, where do I belong? Like I like church, I like school, but I can't quite fit in with either crowd. So I felt very torn at that time.
yeah. Did you any particular reason why your parents sent you up to a public school instead of
It
an
was
Adventist school?
closer. Yeah,
Okay.
the Adventist school was like 40-minute drive away. And
Oh,
you have to wake
okay.
up early. And I think they're just like, it's just easier to just do this.
Yeah.
I did go to Adventist boarding school in high school, and that's kind of where my story takes a turn. I don't know if we want to go there
No, no,
or
no.
anything.
We want to go
Okay.
there.
Okay.
We want to go all the way there with all the story.
All right. All
So
right.
elementary was public school then.
Yeah.
Elementary and middle school
Middle
was public
school.
school for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
During those, like before we get to high school, middle school, and you say you're feeling conflicted. Do you think that made you want to be more of a good girl or more perfect, and at that age because you went to a public school and you didn't go to the Adventist school, or it was just kind of like
Hmm.
conflicted and that was it? It didn't really affect your faith.
I mean, I felt that really in both places. Like, I wanted to be like the perfect A student that, like, all the teachers liked and all the kids liked. I guess it was just like almost different, like, behaviors I had to have at each. I mean, a lot of them were similar because it's not like, public schools are, well, then weren't
Yeah.
super like crazy. But I think in both, I just wanted to be able to find a way to like fit in. I guess because I didn't feel like I belonged in either place.
Okay. So, all right, let's fast forward to high school. You got sent, you're not sent away, but you went to a boarding high school. I
Yes.
don't want to say
Yeah.
it like you were doing bad and they sent you
I
away.
know. Yeah.
But take us to that chapter of your life.
Yeah, so my freshman year, I went to the Adventist boarding school that was nearest to us. It was quite a shock for me. I mean, first of all, just like being away from your parents, like overnight for like long stretches of time.
Yeah.
And also like so many kids like knew each other already. They were coming from different schools. They hadn't gone to school together like since kindergarten. So I was coming in without like anybody that I knew, like no friends, like no concept of what it's like to go to an Adventist school. And that ended up being really, really tough for me. Like I'm a pretty shy person, especially then, and I had a lot of anxiety. So it was difficult for me to like make friends, to feel like I really like fit in. Which kind of led me on a route of like growing up, we heard the health message like so much, and that was definitely
Mm,
emphasized there. Plus, a lot of teenagers are like worried about how much you weigh, what you look like. And so I decided I was going to take that. This is how I was going to make friends. This is how I was going to like fit in and be the good girl. I was like, I'm going to take this health message and I'm going to be the best at it. And I'm going to, do everything they say and be the healthiest, like most beautiful, whatever person
wow.
there.
Yeah.
And I ended up taking that a little bit too extreme to where I had
Mm,
developed anorexia.
yeah. Wow. That's so at your local church, the health message was kind of like the big thing. I feel like every
Mhm.
Adventist church has their thing that they
Yeah,
emphasize more than the other
absolutely.
thing. And so yours, it was the health message.
Hmm.
And that was kind of the lack of a better word, their gospel, the gospel
Yeah.
of health, and to bring
Yeah,
people
a little
like, you
bit.
gotta live, your
Yeah.
body's a temple and you gotta do this and that. So,
Mhm.
and you, in your mind, you were like, I'm going to be the best at this. And this is how I'm going to make friends, by telling them about how they can be healthier and live longer. That was the thinking?
Sort of, I guess it was more like, I'm being able to like, I didn't gain the freshman 15. So many people be like, oh, how do you do that? Or want to like work out with me or like, discuss stuff like that with me. Like I'd be able to like fit in because I would
Yeah.
look the part or had information that they would want or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So do you, quick question. I can't believe about the access. Do you know what the Enneagram is? You ever heard of the
Yes.
Enneagram? Are
Yes.
you a one?
I'm not.
You're not?
I'm like
Really?
a tie between, I think it's like 2 and 6.
2 and 6.
Something like
Interesting.
that.
Because I'm hearing a lot about perfectionism, and it seems like you were kind of obsessed with that. So I'm like, because I'm a
I
one.
probably was then, but
It probably was then. You think it's
yeah.
changed now? Okay, I'm like one and then a wing two. So I was like, I
Okay.
understand the lean towards wanting to do things correct and right and perfect. So I
Hmm.
understand that. I can relate to that struggle. So that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Back to the story. So
Mhm.
let's. How did that begin then? With you decided that the health message, I'm gonna be the best at it. How did that start, and how did it precipitate to you then developing anorexia?
It started with like I just wanted to be like a little bit healthier. So I
Mhm.
was like, I'll just make health. I won't eat as much like dessert. I'll eat more like vegetables. I'll like try to work out once in a while. Like, and once I started to see some of that weight come off, I was like, oh, I mean, I can do this even better. If I lost 1 pound, I can lose 2, which I can lose 5, which I can like.
Mhm.
It quickly escalated like beyond my control almost, where I felt like I couldn't even help myself. I started limiting like more foods, working out more, like basically that became like my obsession. And so I wasn't even like worried about making friends anymore. It was how can I keep up, these habits that I have because I
Yeah.
started feeling anxiety not doing them.
Yeah. Do you think the way the health message was presented to you had an impact on how you handled it?
I think so. Just because there's so much, like at least where I was growing up, like so much emphasis on like weight loss, especially like that seemed to be a big focus, and like always trying to like eat a certain way, get like sunlight, rest, exercise. Like that was so driven into my head that I was like, I have to do this. Like this is like basically what God is telling us to do, and if I don't do
Yeah, yeah,
this, like what's going to happen to me?
yeah. Do you remember the acronym? What was it? New Start?
Yep. Hmm.
What did the N
Hmm.
stand for? I can't even remember it. Like
Is it nutrition?
nutrition? Yeah,
I think
nutrition, uh,
exercise.
exercise, water,
Mhm.
sunshine,
Sunshine,
temperance? It was a T, temperance?
maybe that sounds right.
Yeah, start. What's that stand for?
Air,
Oh, that's what the A stand for?
I
Air?
think so. Fresh air. Um,
Rest and
I don't remember the
there's
other
another
T.
T.
Yeah,
Temperance? No, we already said temperance. I don't remember.
I can't remember.
I don't remember. Okay. But yeah, I remember the New Start. We had a book that
Hmm.
was growing up that had the New Start and like all these
Hmm.
health principles. Like for me growing up, my mom was very taken with the health message as well, because that's kind of what she used to suffer from seizures, and then when she changed her diet, they went away, and it's kind of
Hmm.
what she kind of really latched onto, and it's kind of her thing even till this day. But I think growing up, it impacted. I'm looking back, I realized that it was probably not healthy. Like it was toxic the way I internalized it, because I used
Hmm.
to think like eating between meals was a sin, drinking while
Hmm.
you're eating. I
Yep.
thought people who ate meat were sinning, and I was like,
Yep.
whoa. I was like, this is crazy. It was like, because my mom used to like, oh no, Ellen White says when God's people are translated, flesh foods would cease to be a part of their diet. And I was like,
Hmm.
what are you saying? Are you saying like they have to stop, or they won't go to heaven? So I, thinking about this as an adult, I'm like, none of that can be accurate. Like that's kind of a toxic
Hmm.
presentation of what this good intention, goodwill health message is
Absolutely.
supposed to be, but
Yeah.
then the way it's presented in real life, it always ends up being something that's a little bit negative or not too healthy. But
Hmm.
sorry, this is not about me though. Sorry, so circling
No,
back.
I like. I mean, I agree. Like,
Yeah,
it's similar. Like, there's
yeah,
so many good principles behind it, but it's like how we internalize it and take that in and what we do with it. And I
yeah.
wasn't making the best, healthiest decisions with that information.
Yeah. So it was still the desire to be perfect. Did you feel like you trying to lose more weight was making you, or it didn't become about God at all at this point? It was just kind of about you then.
Yeah, it
Okay.
started. Yeah, it became definitely more about me and like
Yeah.
just focus on numbers and weight and all of that stuff. It started with like, okay, I'm going to be, you know, a better Christian or a better whatever because of this, and then transformed into something really selfish.
Yeah, jeez. So how did others around you perceive you as you were going through this? Did anyone try to be like, hey, maybe take it a little easy, or like what was that like?
Not very many people actually came up and talked to me. I think I had a couple friends one day that said like, you know, like we've noticed that you're like losing more weight. Like we really want to make sure that you like start eating more or whatever. And
Mhm.
start like even watching me at meals. And I like felt even more trapped. So then I come up with excuses like, oh, I got to do homework, so I can't go, or go when they weren't there, or like, oh, I've
Mhm.
got to work. So like, I know they had good intentions, but it didn't really work. And it just kept me more isolated from people. And I think eventually I was the one that went to the dean and was like, you know, I really need help. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So tell us about that, like going to the dean and what happened and transpired after that.
After that, they did send me home, like, and I was doing like work from home just so I could get like the treatment that I needed. And that was my sophomore year. So I had planned to like go all 4 years, but throughout that like year after my sophomore year, or the summer after my sophomore year, like I just kept getting worse and worse, and I needed so much more treatment that they decided not to re-enroll me into the boarding school. So I went to the local Adventist school where my parents had lived, and just to like work on my treatment. But I was stuck in it for quite a while.
Yeah. So what do you think? I think you kind of touched on it a little bit. What was driving that though? It couldn't just be because you wanted to fit in or make friends.
Yeah, no. I mean, it may have started off like wanting to like, you know,
Yeah.
belong, but I think I just had such low like self-worth, and that was where I was starting to get it. Like I didn't feel like I had very many things that I was good at. I mean, I like did well in school, but a lot of people do well in school. So I was like, this is something that I am excelling at. This is something that finally gives me value. Like I didn't see myself as having any other value outside of what I was doing.
Yeah. Even though you grew up in a Christian Seventh-Day Adventist home, you didn't
Hmm.
feel like you had value or worth, even though this whole thing is supposed to be about Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because for me, it was just, you know,
Hmm.
God's judging you on what you do. And if
Yeah.
I didn't do anything that was worthwhile, I was like, well, I have no value. So this became the way that I felt like I was getting that.
Okay. So then after you left academy, like what happened next? Like did you finish high school at home? Did you go back to a public high school?
I went to a local Adventist school because by then my parents had moved, so we were
Okay.
closer, and my brother was there. So I graduated from there, and it was I think towards the end of my senior year that like I mean I gone through I went through inpatient treatment. I had like therapists, group therapists, nutritionists, and like I just felt so stuck. And I just remember like praying like I need the will to give this away because I like don't even want to get rid of it right now. But I
Mhm.
see all the harm it's doing to other people. And then over like the course of like a few weeks, all of a sudden I was like, you know, I'm like really hungry and I'm so tired of like having to put so much effort into making this a thing. Like I'm losing out on time with my friends, my senior year, like my family. And I mean, it wasn't like an easy process, but like I just finally got the will of like, all right, I want to do this. I want to get better when it was
Yeah.
just non existent before that. And I think that's when I started to see, okay, God maybe does care about us. Like maybe he's not just judging everything we do. Maybe he can help us. Like,
Mhm.
so it became more of like, I guess what I would call an acquaintance at that point. Not quite a friend, but like someone that I'm like, all right, maybe I can start
Yeah,
to
yeah.
trust this person a little bit.
Got you. So did you get over that prior to, so let me back up. When did the church hurt occur during that time? Was it college years? Like when did you be like, because you're struggling with this, you went to
Hmm.
academy, you graduated, you're dealing with this issue still even after, but
Hmm.
it seems like you're still trying to deal with it on your own and not necessarily through church counseling or whatever. So
Hmm.
what kind of led you to keep, maybe going a little bit further and further away from the Adventist church?
Yeah, I think people were uncomfortable with what I was going through. I didn't feel like anybody really approached me to talk about it or to see what I was going through. And I think that was the way I felt for a while throughout my life was, like I said, I didn't feel like I fit in at church. And there was people didn't really go out of their way to make me feel like I fit in or to talk to me or to like acknowledge my struggles. I felt often like I was invisible. So this is something, it wasn't like a big thing that happened, but it was something that accumulated over time that once I get to like my adult years eventually led me to lead the church. But like through that time, I felt like the church didn't really care. It was something I still went to because it was just so ingrained in me, but like I didn't feel comfortable sharing things I was going through because nobody ever asked. So I figured, okay, they just, they don't want to know.
Yeah. So you checked out mentally, but you were still going while you were
Mm-hmm.
living at home, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
You kept
Yeah.
going. All
Yep.
right. So when did you move out of your parents' house and stop going to church?
I went to graduate school. And once I was in grad school, because I lived at home when I went to like undergrad, but then I
Okay.
went away for graduate school, and it was then like, things got busy. I was like, like I'm just too tired. I'm not going to go to church this week. Like it just got being like, it kept getting put off because like I had other things that I need to do. It didn't become like a priority to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't necessarily say I quit the church at that time, even though I wasn't
Yeah.
going. Like I still did my devotions and things like that. Like, but it wasn't, like I said, like a high priority for me.
Yeah. Okay. Because what were you studying in grad school, if you don't mind me asking?
Master's of social work.
Master's in social work, and that's what you do now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's just an aside. Okay. So you just got busy in church, and your relationship with God just kind of started fading in the background.
Yep.
So what led you to? Hopefully, I'm not mixing up stories. That you dropped your membership. Is that?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
after grad school, it's so hard to find a job once you're out of school because they want experience, baking experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got a job offer in Washington State. I knew a
Okay.
couple people there, but it was basically completely across the country from like friends, family, everybody that I knew. So once I moved there, like I felt like I'm like, okay, I think this is where God's calling me to go. Like this is the only job offer that's come. Like it's what I want to do. This has to be it. And it was once I got there, I felt so alone and almost I'm like God abandoned me in a sense. Like I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. Like I tried going to church there, but I just like didn't feel a connection at all. And I started really struggling and questioning like God at that point because I was like, okay, like I've gone to church my whole life and I feel
Yeah.
like things have not gotten easier. They've just gotten harder. Like I have no place where I fit in. Now I'm like, in the state all by myself. Like I was really upset about it. And I didn't really know who to go to since I didn't have very many friends there at that time. And so that was when I met a man at the church who
Yeah.
seemed like he was really strong in the faith. And we'd become friends. And, I started sharing some of my struggles. And instead of encouraging me, he started to share that he was questioning things and brought up more and more questions for me that I was like, yeah, I don't know if I really want to be part of this church.
Yeah.
And that was when I decided that I was going to drop my membership. Like, cause I just didn't feel like this was something that if, God was real and was supposed to be love, I didn't see like I saw in that church. So I felt like it was time to leave.
So did you send an email or you called and like, hey, drop my membership?
Mm-hmm. What did I do? I think I sent an email and then the pastor wanted me to meet him for dinner just to chat about my decision. And I felt like kind of trying to get me to stay.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is my final decision. If I choose to come back, I want to come back on my own terms, not because I grew up in this faith and that's what I've taken for granted or whatever.
Okay.
So
you didn't take the dinner with the pastor?
I did, but I
did?
didn't. I didn't get swayed.
You didn't get swayed. So
Yeah.
he was trying to convince you, or he was just trying to hear what you were going through?
It felt kind of like, yeah, he was trying to convince me. Like, I know that he was asking what was going on, but like, I don't know, it felt more like we really want you to stay because, we need those numbers. Like, at least to me. I'm sure that wasn't his intent, but like,
right.
I was pretty sensitive at that time to that. And I was like, this is what I need to do for me. So.
Yeah. So what was life like that? What was life like after you were like, I'm done with the Adventist church. I'm done with church, God in general? Mm-hmm. Like what was that time?
It wasn't necessarily like? God. It was definitely a church.
Yeah.
And almost Christianity as a whole, because I was like, I feel like there's so many bad things that happen with it. Like I started like doing my own study. Like I got into Buddhism for a while because I was like, oh, this is what I see, as like more loving than like Christianity. Like, so like just a lot of like my own searching, I guess. Yeah. But also the man that I had met that kind of convinced me to leave the church, him and I got in a relationship together.
Yeah.
And he became pretty mentally and emotionally abusive at that point. And so that's what I feel like my focus went to. Like we're all made to like worship something. And I felt like I was like worshiping sucked into my relationship. Like that was what was most important to me was to save him, quote unquote, in a sense. Like I wanted him to get better because I felt like, he was going through his own stuff and that's why he was taking it out on me. So that really what I felt like most of my focus became at that point.
Yeah. Wow. How long were you a Buddhist for?
I wouldn't even necessarily call myself a
Oh,
Buddhist, but I mean, it was a good year that I was very interested in it and
yeah.
like was considering like maybe I can be a Buddhist Christian or something because I still believe in God, but I like their principles or like
Yeah.
so that I just went through a lot of interesting
Okay.
study and meditations and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. So how long did this relationship with this man last, and how did it?
Yeah, it was about 4 years.
4 years.
I mean, it continued to get worse and worse, and some of it started to get physical. And
Yeah.
that was when I came to the point of like, okay, I'm going back to God. And I just started like pleading of like, I need stuff to get better. Like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, if like things start to get better, I'll go to church. Things started to get a little bit better as they do in the ups and downs in an abusive
Yeah.
relationship. But I did stick to my side of the bargain. So I
Yeah.
started going to church. I did have a friend that I had sort of met. We got closer after I left church, actually. So I felt comfortable going back with him. And the church had kind of like changed a bit. Some people had left. The dynamics are a little bit different. So I started to feel a bit more comfortable being back.
Yeah. So, sorry, and you met him at the church in Washington, correct?
Yes.
Did he drop
Mm-hmm.
his membership when you dropped your membership as well?
Nope. I
No.
think he's still a member,
You
actually.
still remember? Was he?
Yeah.
But he wasn't going.
No.
He
No.
wasn't going. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's so interesting. That's so
Mm-hmm.
interesting. So those 4 years you were with him, you weren't going to church, and you kind of became obsessed with making this relationship
Mm-hmm.
work. And
Yep.
then once it started getting worse, that's when you started going back to church.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So what was what precipitated you fully committing back to God, and then specifically what led you back to stay within the Adventist denomination, and did you kick that guy to the curb?
Yes. One of the ladies at our church, she brought this book called, I think it's called Conversations About God by
Hmm.
Graham Maxwell. And it was an amazing book and really opened my eyes to a totally different perception than what I had been raised with of who God is. And like seeing all these principles that they're based on love and not on these set of rules. And I mean, seeing it now, it's like, of course, that's like, it just wasn't obvious to me, like at
Right.
all. And just how like, basically like the law of God isn't to like, it isn't like imposed like it is here, like with different laws and like you have to do this or you're going to get in trouble. It was like literally almost like gravity. It was like what he built life to be. And so when we follow those principles, like it just works out better because it's how we were built to be. And I had never looked at it that way. So I began doing like my more reading and studying. And I was like, wow, like this is actually a God that I would want to have in my life. And I felt like I really got to know God as a loving person that I wanted a relationship with.
Yeah.
And this in turn helped me to see how unloving my relationship was. And I could literally, like, even looking back, I'm like, I felt like the love that I thought I had for him just like dissipate. And I was,
Yeah.
because there was just no like freedom, no free will. And that's so important when it comes to love and what God has created our, us to be like. And so it did take a while, but eventually I was able to, break away from him and get my own start. And about the same time that I broke up with him was when I did that, was it like Declaration of Faith or whatever?
Yeah. Profession of faith.
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah.
Like basically around the same time. So I was
Yeah.
like, I want to start over. I want to be in this church because I want to be in it. And they've been so supportive with helping me get out of this relationship. And this is where I wanted to start again.
So eventually you found the support that you were looking for probably all these years within the Adventist church that
Yeah.
you started going back to in Washington, and that helped you break free from this guy. That's
Yes.
amazing how that goes full circle.
It is. It absolutely is. Yeah. And there's, because I think there's like new people in that church and it was
Yeah.
small, but they were like, I made it more of like a family, like where
Yeah.
I felt like I was seen and I didn't feel judged. And it was like, how can we help you like where you're at?
Yeah. So that local church community helps you, I guess, begin to heal from, I guess we can start back to childhood where your view of God was as this authoritarian overlord,
Yes.
watching you make sure you don't mess up. And if you do, you get zapped or you're not going to heaven or something like that.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So how long ago was that? How many years ago was that since?
That was about 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So pretty recent.
Yeah.
Pretty recent. Wow. So when you reflect back on your story and you see like from childhood until now at the church you go to, what was it you think that was really missing that didn't really give you the wholeness that you would think you would feel being part of a church community or in a relationship with God or just being a Christian in general?
I really think it's I don't want to say love, but it kind of feels like just having that, like sharing what love is and what it looks like, that relationship of like having people reach out to me and ask me questions and get to know me for me, and not because they have an agenda to push, not because they need, numbers in the church or they need people to get baptized or whatever it might be. It's just like, I want to get to know you. And if you want to come to this church, cool. If you don't, like, that's okay. Like, I still care about you as a person. That's what I really felt like was missing in my life.
Oh, so like the church community, like that real community, right? Not just
Mm-hmm.
like you're a member at a church, you show up on Saturday, you worship it, then you leave, but
Yeah.
other church members who actually cared about you as a person, despite your struggles with your faith
Mm-hmm.
or with your walk. Okay.
Yeah.
And then like what's today, what's your view on the health message today? Are you still
Uh,
vegan, vegetarian?
I'm not. I
Okay.
eat meat. I mean, I go back and forth between vegetarianism and eating meat. I really try to listen to like what my body needs.
Yeah.
And like by eating meat, I go for like, the more organic, like
Yeah.
stuff that I know is grass fed, whatever that is. And I think I think the health message is amazing. There's so many like great principles it has through there. And there's things of it that I follow. But I don't like try to follow it to a T because everybody is different. And I think that's
Yeah.
really what the message tries to share is like, here's some, principles. You can take that and apply it to your life as you feel like it's fit.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a better way it should be applied. Like everybody's body's different, but here are the principles and try to apply them instead of like this is what everyone needs to be. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a vegan and I think it's the best for the human body, but I would never be like you need to be one.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how that works.
Yeah.
And then do you still feel or feel less that anxiety that you had around church, faith, and being perfect or salvation? Do you
Mm-hmm.
still feel that anxiety? Do you struggle with that?
I will admit it comes up once in a while, but like, I mean, I've been through therapy as well, especially after my relationship, and it has lessened so much. Like, I can't even express the difference between what it was like before and now that I feel like I have an actual relationship with God. Like, I used to be debilitated by like PTSD that I had, depression, anxiety, and now I have my ups and downs, but I know that I can get out of them because God is there to help me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, like someone reached out to me today on Instagram to want to share their story on the podcast, and like they're in therapy for their anxiety because of their faith and because of
Mm-hmm.
the legalism in this church that they were brought up in, and that they're anxious and they have to take therapy for it. And I think that if the church is not listening, they should be listening because this thing
Mm-hmm.
is happening to people like you and to people like that person where we need I think our approach should be a lot different, like with the health message. Like it's a beautiful thing,
Yes,
but for some people it could be toxic because of the way it's presented. It's being
absolutely.
put like it's
Mm-hmm.
the gospel when the gospel is the gospel, and this is just like something that's cool and it's nice and it'd probably be better for your life if you apply these principles, or
Mm-hmm.
so that you don't view God as a child, as an authoritative figure and that's looking to judge you. There has to be a better way to do that. And then which leads me to one of my final questions is like, what advice would you have for the church right now in terms of
And
looking?
I was really stuck there for quite a while. Like that was how I viewed the world and like God of like things are good and things are bad and you got to be doing the good to get what you want, and if you're the bad then you deserve what's coming to you basically. All walks of life, especially as we get closer to like those last days, like lots of different people are going to come into the church and they're going to be living very different lives, and I think the most important thing to focus on is love. Like, how can I show love to this person no matter where they're at? And it's God is
Oh,
the one that will open their eyes or convict them
yeah.
if there's something they need to change. That's not for us to do. So just to open, their hearts and be loving to them. Like, if there's their own son or daughter, whoever.
Yeah, that's good. And then what advice or resources would you offer someone who's going through what you went through right now in their life?
I've done a lot of my own therapy and self-reflection because I think that was important to just look at some of the things and, the harmful beliefs that I had internalized and tried
Yeah.
to work through those, especially when they come up.
Mhm.
And I loved Melissa's social media. Like
Yeah.
it came at like the perfect time because I was like, there's other people like me who think like me. Like I'm not so alone. So I think just having that community, whether it's online, like at church, like just friends, like I have a great supportive church now and lots of
That's
great
good.
friends. Just being able to talk about it with them and not, be like, oh, am I the only person that has these doubts? I should just like shove them. Like it's good to talk about them and voice them because that's how we learn.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I totally agree. I think having a local church community that you you could be tight with is very helpful in our walk. So if you do experience church hurt, whether that's from childhood or whatever stage of life, you can at least have someone to go back to that can maybe not cause you to leave completely, but like maybe, hey, let's wrestle with this together. No matter how long it takes. You having doubts, that's fine. You don't believe anymore, but let's stay in the orbit and let's love this person until they reconcile whatever that they're going through. But I think that's good, like a local church community. Samantha, thank you so much for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. And this is the first one that we've had someone talk about the health message. It's like, oh, I can relate to that experience. So it was really great to have this conversation with you. I appreciate it, and I'm glad that you were able to do this and we were able to do this, and that someone's going to hear your story in sometime in January 2024 is when this episode will come up. And again, thank you so much. Guys, there you have it, another episode of the Church Hurt Podcast. If you like this episode, please subscribe, share, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.